Hi, I'm Zhenevere Sophia Dao. Nice to meet you, if I don't already know you. I'm getting a lot of questions about the upcoming introductions to the SOMA and Civilization program, these preludes that I'm doing every Saturday morning in December. And because of the variety and the pointedness of the questions, and because a lot of them are repeated by several people, I thought it might be useful, and to answer all of those questions in a missive to the mailing list would be a little cumbersome, and ask a lot of your attention. So I thought maybe I would do a really short video explaining what's coming and answering some of those questions. So I'm just going to go one by one. And again, hi. The introductions again are taking place on Saturday mornings from 9 o'clock to 10:30 Mountain Time here in the United States, and they are 5 of them. The first one on December 3rd is on origin and essence. The second one is on power and emotion. The third one is on fragility and sensation. The fourth one is on eros and transformation. And the fifth one is on paradox, mysticism, and art. You don't have to have any experience with these classes or my teaching. You don't have to have taken the last session in order to be in this session. The classes are not recorded for the public, and so many people write me and say, will I be able to watch them on my own time? And my answer is, unfortunately, no. And the reason for that is because I'm trying to do something strange, a combination of old world and new world, and convenience hurts things in ways that we don't know, and the convenience of being able to watch the class anytime seems really beneficial, and it certainly has a lot of beneficial aspects, but there's an underlying reality that is perhaps more important, and that has to do with the coming together, the idea of making an event in time that people gather around and make whatever sacrifices they have to make in order to do that. It's a little like cities and strip malls. It's a strange analogy, but maybe not. That the mall and the strip mall seems convenient because consumers will come and they'll buy a lot more because they're already there doing shopping. But in the process, people don't meander through the cities and see the civic life of a population on the way to get the linen, and then on the way to get the food, and everything's in one place. But it means that people don't take time to breathe and to see the rest of the world for which they are actually buying these things, which then reinforces their need or their not need, their non-necessity. And then you travel through certain neighborhoods and see people on their porches, and then you find another shop, and that stitches together the meaning of consumerism as a part of life, not as a separate world of buying, and that disrupts a sense of harmony. I know this from living in Italy for a while, and though Italy now is getting their malls and getting their superstores, to be sure, when I was there it was less so, and that was the experience, and so forgive me for making it not available like that, but that's the reason for that, and we're so conditioned to product and client, and whatever the client is the god, and whatever the client needs, the culture does what it must do to get the client its service at all costs. And I know that I'm going to lose the client in some cases in this way, but hopefully you understand my rationale behind that. I do know that 2 of these 5 Saturdays fall on holidays. It's on the Eve, Christmas Eve morning, and New Year's Eve day morning. And I'm not going to cajole the calendar and try to squeeze in on a Thursday or Friday on those weeks. I'm just going to do it. And one of the reasons is that in the past, people find a lot of usefulness in having a class that is something very meaningful to their inner life in the midst of the holidays, which can be so stressful. So I think, notwithstanding the fact that I just want to keep the schedule tidy and easy to understand, as in every Saturday morning, I also, as a side note to that reality, I also think that it might be nice for people on those mornings to come and be in another kind of community. Sometimes people have told me that that's actually really useful. Onward, they get a little bit more intricate. Will there be movement in these preludes or these introductions? And yes, absolutely there will be. I would say somewhere between 20 and 25 minutes, not the whole series that I'm going to be teaching in 2023, when these introductions move into their full-fledged form of a 6-week series. But yes, we'll touch on some of the movement that corresponds to these themes. What is mythosomatic movement? And some of these questions are very large, and I can only touch on them lightly. What is mythosomatic movement? Well, the philosopher William James wrote at one point something like, we do not tremble because we are afraid. We first tremble, and then we are afraid. And when I read that 30 years ago, it dovetailed with my experience of the body being foundational for experience, not reactive to experience only. And then I had a dance teacher, a wonderful dance teacher, John Wilson, at the University of Arizona, and I was lucky enough to be able to join the real dancers in their graduate studies. He allowed me to come and train with them, and in one of the classes, he said he had just come back from the zoo where he was with his granddaughter, and his granddaughter was stomping her foot and crying and he said, "What's wrong? Do you have to pee? Well, let's go to the bathroom." And then she said, "No." And then he said, "What's wrong? Are you hungry? You know, did you poop? Are you hungry? All these basic needs." And she said, "No, it's not that." And then, shockingly, he said to us all, he was very beautiful and theatrical. He said, "And what I realized is that she's planning for her divorce." She was like 6 years old. And something clicked in me again about the primacy of the body. So mythosomatic movement, all of the movements that I've innovated over the last many decades, are theaters of sensitivity around archetypal themes, where we tell ourselves the story of the shape of our longing and our desire to be the kind of people that we must evince in this life if we are to have considered that we have lived. And so the idea of praxis, Praxis, the idea of a praxis that insists on the body as the template for experiences to come. That's what mytho, story, somatic, feedback physically of that story, mythosomatic movement is. What is Post-Daoism? Why the post in Post-Daoism? Well, the Tao Te Ching and the I Ching are still, to me, the most interesting and fecund of the spiritual and religious texts. But they were written a long time ago, certainly before the understanding of depth psychology and before vast philosophical movements like Romanticism, which is very close to my heart and a large part of what I call the field of ideation of post-Daoism. How to be succinct, the Taoism represents a stunning embrace of this worldliness, this world, that religious experience has to do with an understanding of harmony within this experience. What I love so much about Taoism is it doesn't jettison the soul, like so many other religious faiths, to a disembodied reality out of time and space for its fulfillment. It says that the arena of the world is the place of religiosity. And I like that because it puts a bar, it puts a mandate on human consciousness as the place of religion. And I've always loved that and needed that. But where the soul, what we understand about the soul through depth psychology, where the soul fits into harmony has been a question, and that I've had all my life. And as I got older, I began to become less satisfied with the overall ethos of the Tao Te Ching being an ethos of conservatism. Ultimately, the Tao Te Ching is interested in outcomes, in how to disposition your attitude toward life, your behavior, and to attend to relationships with other human beings and nature in such a way that outcomes are smooth and auspicious, and that was very intriguing, and it still is intriguing in many ways. But as I began to live the life of the soul with all of its tumult and all of its confusion and all of its intensity and all of its bewilderment and ecstasy and disorientation, I began to feel a loss at trying to fit all of that into order, and the religious practices and the philosophical ideations that are based on calming the soul and based on transcending tumult and confusion became suspicious to me in light of what I guess I would have to call Romanticism, which is a philosophical movement that that really took hold in the late 1700s and early 1800s, and began to look at the nature of intensity and individual experience itself as the marker of fulfillment. So not what happened and what one was able to ultimately get out of life, or where one would end up and how, quote, successful one was, but what was the feeling, the sensation of being that person in the midst of the storms of life. That romantic philosophy really touched my own sense of what I call a justified ontology, the rightness of being itself. And then I began to see that there was some tension between religious philosophies that tried to placate the soul and a philosophy that basically said that the intense articulation of the width of the soul is the meaning of life itself. So that if the Romantics were to have an I Ching, they would be working with the sticks to find the most intense experience, come what may, regardless of how sublime or disastrous it was. What is, oh augury, how can I disposition myself in order to have the most soulful experience at the cost of whatever that takes? That would be the Romantics' augury. And you can look at the poetry of people like Byron and Shelley as a kind of augury toward that kind of experience. And so Post-Daoism, in short, is a combination of the yearning for a harmony, a deep, deep harmony at the back of the world itself that includes the unmitigated and unreduced and unplacated intensity of the soul. How might, and it is a might because it's an exploration rather than a concrete philosophy. It's an approach to trying to understand how the human soul might, in its deepest forms of bravery and expression, still somehow feed an underlying order of harmony within the cosmos, if you will. So that's a very brief and inadequate definition of Post-Daoism. How has your defamation affected your perspective on teaching? And this, of course, could be a huge topic, and maybe a better context will arise at some point for that discussion. But in short, I would say that being lied about violently about one's actual nature, one's character, who one is as a fundamental person, is like, it's like being an animal in the wilderness, and the bullets of the hunters come and they penetrate your flesh, and it hurts terribly, and they knock you down, which is what they wanted, and then you find that you're not dead, and the wounds are in your flesh, but you move through the wilderness of life. And a really strange, one of the most, if not the most strange things that's ever happened to me happens, which is that the things that are true about oneself, that were lied about in order to hurt one and to destroy one's connections to life and to other people who might need one, those things that are most true about one, and of course the one in this case is me, those things that are most true about one, they tend to grow larger and more real in the face of the violence of the lies. so that one's internal life becomes a form of terrible ecstasy, terrible, terrible ecstasy at the reality of who one actually is in distinction to the violence of the lies. And one's whole life becomes hallowed and sacrosanct because of the relationship one has to that truth, because one has nothing else, in a sense. The violence of a lie is that it destroys the innocence of other people's perceptions. That's its purpose. And so one has nothing else but one's truth. And the surrender that entails is, for me, formidable and the most extraordinary religious experience that I've had in my entire life. And the way in which that relates to teaching is that all of teaching, anything that I might have to say, becomes totally provisional. There's no faith in a sure, S-H-O-R-E. There's no faith in a shore. The students come out of the great oblivion, and some of them have to swim their way through the lies to get to the presence of a person, in this case me. And there's no sure footing, and now I'm using the word sure in the other sense, S-U-R-E. I don't mean to be difficult, but there's no sure footing and there's no shore. And again, what that does is it puts one, I think, in the most realistic, the most terrifyingly realistic disposition, religiously and philosophically, that we never know if we can actually communicate ourselves to other people. We never actually know. And so we have to have a preternatural faith in ourselves, knowing that the listener and the witness and the lover and the receiver and the student, that ultimately we can have no absolute confidence that they can read our honesty or our truth or whatever wisdoms we might have, that they can read these as self-evident. And I think I was deluded before these few people lied about me. I was deluded. I had more faith in the world being able to read the inner life immediately and correctly. And now I don't have that faith. And so teaching has the perilousness of falling in love, because I have no idea if I have no idea what or whom is receiving anything that I say, and whether or not they are deluded or confused or open-hearted and sensitive to reality. I don't know. And so all I have is the free fall between what it is that I am trying to share and the impossibility of it actually being shared. And that very impossibility creates a beautiful and terrifying urgency in the thing, a faith in the thing itself. I'm being a little clumsy as I talk about this, but let me put it simply and say that this stretch between what might be inside me reaching toward a amorphous and unstable witness or audience, instead of having me lose faith in the pedagogical endeavor, it has heightened it to, again, a kind of religious experience of terror and beauty like never before. And again, there's probably so much more to say about that, but this is not the context. As a trans woman, do you plan on using the platform of your teaching to address the bigotry and trans hatred that is escalating all over the country and the world? I think I can answer this short, not long. I I have no life. I have no life other than this life as this woman, this trans woman, this woman. I have no person, and I'm deeply content and deeply relieved, more than I can possibly say, just to be able to be her in this lifetime. A trans person's life is a miracle. Every one of us that's trans, we are living miracles to ourselves, because we were told that we couldn't be who we are, and then we forced it through the birth canal of ardor and faith and pain and effort, and we forced it in to the ontology itself. And so I think I just want to be her, simply to be that person in this context, and not to be the polemic of the trans experience, but to just be the woman that I am, exchanging ideas and thoughts with you in the living world. And if that accrues around it some form of politic, then let it be so. What's the program coming up in 2023? Well, these preludes in December are going to adumbrate a program that will have each one of those topics as a 6-week session, and we'll go deep into all of those topics with mythosomatic series, some of which are very new. And I think I was unwise when I put that out about the influence of horses and theater on the mythosomatic forms. I think people, it's not as if I'm going to be teaching dressage on the Zoom or reading Shakespeare plays with you instead of teaching classes on Post-Daoism. It's not as if that, but I'm working with horses and working deeply in the theater now, and the exquisite attention to sensitivity. What was the human for? Well, that's the question. It has to be sensitivity. It has to be. Sensitivity has to be intelligence. And the forms that we'll be doing and the forms that I'm innovating now are directly engaged in the resurrection of sensitivity as one of the purposes of why we're here. Anyway, the program will be the deepening of the topics. I think that covers most of the questions that were redundant. I mean, redundant in a positive, sweet way, that were repeated. I put information about registration below the video, so you can check out the description on the website and find a way to register there. And I will see some of you in class on Saturday, December 3rd. Thank you so much for your time just now.